Upon completing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, I was left with a Henry-sized hole in my heart. From late February to the beginning of June, if I was gaming, it was likely that I would be hanging out in Bohemia, trying to help Henry get into a wedding, or scrounge up enough coin to afford better gear, or just generally goofing off, joining fight clubs, playing dice, attempting to hunt. When I got my PlayStation Wrapped for the year, it was literally 90% KCD2. When it was all said and done, you would think that I'd be wanting to leave the world Warhorse created behind, but that couldn't have been further from the truth. I still wanted to play in the world, and fortunately, I was able to do so, since I never actually played the first game in the series. When it came out, I remember being casually interested in it, but the reviews at the time stated that the combat was extremely difficult and frustrating, so I never tried it. I did, however, pick it up on Steam sale a few years ago, but never actually dove in, which is weird. It's not like I do that every time Steam has a sale, and now I have a giant library of games that I've never actually played. Who would do that? However, after 175 hours in the sequel, difficult combat didn't really worry me, so I finally fired up that copy of KCD1. Compared to KCD2, the graphics aren't nearly as good, but, they're decent enough for what they are. I found Henry weaker than he ever was at the beginning of the second game, over his head both in combat and at court, not even yet a man-at-arms, but a lowly blacksmith's apprentice, living a simple life, forging a sword alongside his adopted father, Martin, for his actual father, Radzig. Very, very messy, very Real Housewives of Bohemia over here. Then tragedy strikes. His town is ransacked by the Cumans, his mother and father butchered in the streets. Henry makes it out to warn a nearby lord of what happened in Skalitz, but then feels the need to return. When he does, he nearly loses his life, but he's saved by Teresa, a friend and future potential love interest. Upon waking up from his coma caused by his injuries, he finds that he was taken in by Teresa's uncle, a gambling addict who wants Henry to repay him for saving his life. From that point on, the world's entirely your oyster. You can head to Rete and become a guard, which introduces you to Hans, a spoiled brat of a lordling, who's also a future potential love interest, just not in this game. Whereas KCD2 is about Henry establishing himself as a trustworthy confidant for Hans in the House of Lipa, KCD1 is more about Henry finding out who he is in the absence of everything he once knew. The combat's just different enough that it gave me a good challenge to get the hang of, but unlike in the sequel, I was hardly ever avoiding confrontations. The biggest thing that stood out to me in this game was that the region fully felt besieged by enemy forces. The Cumans are a constant threat, often ambushing you on the road, and what I loved about their tactics was that sometimes when you fast travel, you'd be ambushed, just like in the second game, and you'd find that they had cut down trees to make traveling the road more difficult. Then they'd emerge from the forest, and it added a bit of realism to the encounters, making the ambushes feel less avoidable. The Cuman presence also makes the regular populace more desperate. Many are left as refugees after the initial sacking of Skalitz, but none have the influence of being the illegitimate son of a local lord like Henry does. So they're left to fend for themselves. That culminates in Henry being ambushed by peasants who come at you with small swords or polearms. There's also a quest line that involves you attempting to get work for two of your friends, but they're like class A fuck-ups, so it never really works out, and they just get themselves into trouble and fired from said work. The main story is really great, full of moments of valor alongside betrayals. I do wish that I had played this one before KCD2, as a major plot twist was obviously spoiled by the sequel being set in the future. Even with the knowledge that Isfahan Toph was going to end up betraying your father Radzig, the journey is more important than the destination. It was a bold choice to have the game end on what is essentially a cliffhanger, as you're forced to make a bargain that allows Toph to go free with the sword that you had forged for your Lord Father. There's no guarantee that this would ever get a sequel, so you can just imagine fans were a bit upset with the hanging threads. Granted, they're tied up nicely in KCD2. While the main story certainly has its shortcomings and frustrating quests, there's one where you're stuck in a monastery that sticks out as particularly frustrating and very antithetical to the concept of the rest of the game. Like with KCD2, it shines when you're let off your leash, free to explore and pursue any quests that sound interesting. My favorite recurring quest line was going after the various Cuman camps around the region. I found that it made sense thematically that Henry would want revenge against the invaders who stole his parents from him, and it gave me the opportunity to practice my sword-wielding skills. The one downside of pursuing that quest is it ends up with you having a lot of loot from the various humans, and because of that, you can sell them and money becomes really no object. Fortunately, there's DLC that involves you rebuilding a village, and you can sink your coin into that. Let's just say I was never really wanting for much in the later half of the game. There's also a tournament DLC that you can partake in. Each time you win the tournament, you gain a piece of high-level armor. This was yet another way to allow Henry and you as the player to practice with various weapons, and I had a lot of fun with the tournaments, as it gave me the same vibes I got from reading about them in the Song of Ice and Fire novels. A huge highlight of the games is the quest where you're hanging out with Hans Capon. It was fun to see their bond grow, especially in the DLC that involves you helping Hans court the daughter of a butcher, complete with feeding him romantic lines of poetry to help seal the deal. It sets up the beginning of the second game nicely. It makes me want to start a new playthrough of KCD 2. All told, I put about 75 hours of playtime into KCD 1 to complete the main story, and I feel like I was really taking my time with things. While I wasn't trying to be a completionist or anything, I did take the time to smell the roses and live in Henry's world. If I hadn't played the second game last year, KCD 1 would have been my favorite game that I played in 2025. As it stands, it's right behind the second, and an absolute must-play if you're a fan of deep RPGs, or if you've only played the sequel and you're looking for something to get lost in. I still have a Woman's Lot and a Band of Bastards DLCs. Once I complete those, I'll probably make a separate video on the DLCs as a whole. For now, I'm left to wonder if a game series will ever capture me quite as much as this one has. If you have any suggestions on a deep RPG I should play next, please let me know. What Warhorse has done with these two titles is nothing short of a miracle, especially when you consider that it was started on Kickstarter. Now it has a huge fan base, and Henry will go down as one of the very best protagonists of any series. I don't do ratings because I feel like that kind of distracts from the point of doing an entire video on it in the first place, but I'll just say this. KCD 1 is totally worth your time, and one of the very best games that I've ever had the pleasure of playing. But now, I really do have a Henry-sized hole in my heart. Warhorse, please announce a third KCD. I'm absolutely begging you. So, what should I play next? Let me know in the comments. And if you've played KCD 1 for the first time recently, let me know your thoughts about it. Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you enjoyed it, please check out all of our channels, which include Those Fake Nerds for nerd and pop culture news, Wicked Good Sports for sports news, Better Radio, which has all of our podcasts on it. The Traders is starting up. I can't wait to cover that in our podcast, Meet You at Breakfast. And check out our newest channel, which is called History is Wicked, where we cover cryptids, urban legends, and weird history stories. Again, thank you so much for checking this one out, and I will see you in the next one.